Hi, this is Tom Jacobs from tdjacobs.com. I'm an evolutionary astrologer, an energy worker, and a channel. And at tdjacobs.com, you'll find a bunch of tools, including a bunch that have to do with helping you understand Chiron generally, as well as with your own placement. The Chiron book, Chiron 2012 in the Aquarian Age, the key and how to use it, the Chiron audio course, and also the Chiron Natal Report. So, been spending a lot of time working on Chiron since 2008, actually. I encourage you to check out the first two videos in this series, Chiron Overview, and then also Chiron and Energy Management, before what I say in this video will make complete sense. But this video is on Chiron in the first house, the natal placement. And I work with Chiron as a marker of energetic sensitivity, as in it's the energy antenna within your psyche. Mercury is perception function, Jupiter is belief and risk-taking, and optimism, pessimism, and Chiron is energetic sensitivity. So wherever Chiron is in your natal chart, you are hypersensitive to how others respond to you in that part of life. A house in your natal chart represents a bunch of activities and experiences that kind of fit in a certain category. The first house has to do with body, self-presentation, style, showing up, how you present yourself, right? It also has to do with first impressions. It has to do with making your own decisions, and it has to do with independence. Now, a lot of people with sorry, I'm on Pluto frequency today. A lot of people with Chiron in the first will think there is something about their physical body or their face, right? Think about Aries, Mars in the first house, that they think makes them weird or not worth love, or think there's something weird or strange about them. One person, could think that his nose is too big. Another person could think her ears stick out too much. Another person could say, my legs are too long, my torso is too short, or my torso is too long, my legs are too short. Something that they feel about their physical body makes them not lovable or not attractive. So Chiron and the first people are hypersensitive to how others see their physical body as well as how they present themselves. So someone with Chiron in the first may have a wounding about being assertive because they're not sure if they should even show up. The wounding from childhood can be a feeling that they don't have the right to exist. Now, like I'm talking about hypersensitivity, every human is an energetic being. This is one of the main things I'm teaching with my Chiron approach, is that you're not a brain with a body with a brain, and then that pesky heart that gets in the way. You're actually consciousness, and you're sensitive to energy. Now, you will sense energy, and you will feel emotion as if you're a musical instrument being played. So other people look at you funny, with Chiron in the first, you're gonna assume there's something wrong with you. You raise your hand and say, hey, here's an idea, and people scowl. One person out of 30 scowls at you. The other 29 are like, interesting, but you don't notice that because part of you is kind of expecting rejection for being assertive, for standing out, for making your own decisions, all that kind of thing that has to do with the first house. Now, about assertion, it's healthy that what's needed is that you need to learn healthy conflict. You need to understand that being self-assertive, you may rub people the wrong way sometimes. You may ruffle some feathers. What you want may interfere or seem to threaten what somebody else wants. What you may have seemed to learn over the course of your life is that you don't have the right to want things, or your desires don't matter. When you say, hey, I would like to do this, and somebody else says, no, forget it, let's do this instead. Remember, you are hypersensitive to their response to you. So all Chiron natal placements have the potential, or a person has the potential to make a mountain out of a molehill. So that's the kind of landscape: self-assertion, being firm, saying yes and no, making your own decisions, being independent, going your own way, trailblazing. Leadership is a big part of it. You're not going to want to take any leadership positions because you don't want to be revealed to be, an idiot, a loser, somebody who's totally not qualified. You may have other things in your natal makeup and your natal chart, your personality, where people might ask you, could you please be in charge of this? But you might be very afraid to do that. So the sensitivity and the fear of rejection, and I like to think of it as this fear that we might be worthy of being rejected. We're afraid of being rejectable. We don't know if we're lovable. right? So the Chiron in the first wounding happens when you are an infant for everybody. And if you watch a bunch of these Chiron in the houses videos, you'll hear this story and through this different lens. But in the first house, about independence and self-assertion and wanting things, reaching out and grabbing things would be how a baby would assert a first house desire. And that might have been stifled, or you as a kid might have felt that if you do that, you're not going to be loved. So Chiron within us often represents what we fear about ourselves will make us not loved, or will lose us love and support. So all this is about knowing and trusting yourself with Chiron in the first house. When you can have compassion for the fact that you're vulnerable, Chiron leads us to vulnerability, and we either then clamp down and close down, or we mature into compassion. When you accept that you're vulnerable and there are things about you that you're very sensitive about, but you no longer judge those things, then you move beyond this false dichotomy of wounded or wounded healer. Check out the other videos for information on that, especially the Chiron overview video. Then you get into a compassionate acceptance that you have parts of you who are terrified of not being loved, and in accepting them, you bring them love. So you become the source of validation for yourself, and one way you become the kind of parent that the baby part of you, when you were a baby, needed. The Chiron wound is always activated when we're too young to deal with it. We're pre-verbal, pre-rational, we're babies. Oftentimes it can be in the womb, especially with Chiron in the first house, but it can also be when we're minutes old, hours, days, weeks, months old. When I've done intuitive work tuning into different people's stories, the original wounding event is never after 18 months, usually younger, 18 months of age. So we're talking about a part of you inside you, an inner kid, who can't deal, who is terrified that he or she is not lovable, not just not loved, but not worth love. So you must become the kind of parent that you needed and validate yourself in every way. And when you accept that, you get beyond, as I said, this false dichotomy of I can either be in pain or try to help other people with the same pain. And you move into a compassionate acceptance of self, recognizing the beauty that everybody does have vulnerability. And you'll realize that everyone actually has vulnerability and is afraid to be assertive in certain ways at certain times, but that you're hypersensitive to the threat of the loss of love if you do it. So if you want more information about your own Chiron placement, get the Chiron Natal Report at tdjacobs.com. And it's your natal house sign and aspects, as well as transits and progressions to your Chiron, and also transits of Chiron to your natal chart. So again, that's tdjacobs.com. Thanks for your time, and stay tuned. I'm going to do all the rest of the houses and also signs for Chiron. Bye-bye.